Hi, I'm George. Welcome to MedEV. Today, let's talk about the EU's anti-subsidy probe into Chinese EV. We tend to avoid discussing politics on this channel, but this time, this investigation is just too relevant and interesting to skip. Although it was aimed for Chinese OEMs, we think it will eventually harm European car makers like a boomerang.
But global markets are now flooded with cheaper Chinese electric cars. And their price is kept artificially low by huge state subsidies. This is distorting our market.
We can say this is what many politicians believe, but is this really the case? Let's start with the numbers. Take a look at BYD. This #1 EV makers in China launched 3 models in Europe, Hantang and Atto 3. The first two are priced at 72,000 euros in Europe, while the third one is 38,000 euros. But do you know how much do they cost it in China? Han started at 27,000 euros in China, and the top trim level 4-wheel drive model is started 38,500 euros. Similarly, the fully loaded Tang is also 38,500 euros, and the average price for Atto 3 is only around 20,000 euros. The price of these 3 models in Europe are nearly twice as much as in China. What about European companies? Take Volkswagen for example. The ID.3 is priced around 40,000 euro in Germany, but in China, the MSRP started just 21,000 euro. Moreover, Volkswagen dealers also offered a 5,000 euro price cut. So to own an ID.3 in China, you only need to pay 16,000 euros. As for the ID.4, the difference is even more striking. This SUV started a little bit higher than ID.3 in Europe, but it's only 19,000 euros in China, and the list goes on. So clearly, you can see who is really doing the dumping and who should really launch an anti-subsidy probe. In fact, this investigation aimed not only at Chinese car makers, but also German ones, like BMW, Mercedes, and Volkswagen. These companies were required to provide information to the European Commission about their business partners in China and details about their operations in China, such as production and the number of cars shipped to the EU. Some OEMs were even asked to provide detailed information about how they obtained each car components. This issue sparked a controversy among different European nations. Some German car makers even suspected that the real plotter behind this are French companies, and the reasoning is that they face greater competition from Chinese EVs than German do in Europe, while their business in China remain unaffected by EU's anti-measure. So insiders in German auto industry believe that this only represents French interests. It's their way of trying to take out German car makers while pretending to have a moral high ground. In fact, the EU did something similar about a decade ago in the solar industry. In 2012, the EU started an anti-dumping probe into Chinese solar products involving $20 billion. And of course, as we now know, this did not lead to a rise of the solar industry in Europe, at least up to now. China's solar industry continues to lead the global market while providing benefits for both sides. In our view, this kind of probe serves only to buy some time for their own industry. In Europe, 14 million people are directly or indirectly involved in the auto industry, accounting for 6.1% of the total employment. Any impact from outside Europe must be artificially softened, so this investigation itself might only be an excuse. But here's the thing. German OEMs like BMW has also been exporting cars made in China. In 2022 alone, this auto giant exported nearly 20,000 iX3 to Europe. The i3 and the Mini Electric will be the next ones. So this probe will inevitably cause severe backlash on BMW, as well as other European companies doing business with China, doing more harm than good. In order to boost domestic growth, China did provide subsidies to local EV makers, as did all other countries that try to embrace the electrification. Not to mention, the subsidy was already ended in 2022. Now the Chinese EV market is experiencing a full-fledged market-driven competition. On the contrary, it's the United States and the EU that are currently offering huge subsidies for the EVs produced domestically with domestic supply chain. By EU's regulation, the provisional measures may be imposed 9 months from the initiation and the definitive measures within 13 months. If the results turn out to be aligned European Commission's goal, they can impose anti-subsidy duties on BEV imports from China, and the tariff will stay there for 5 years, creating a trade barrier. This is certainly not what we want to see, as it would impact not only Chinese EV makers, but also European car makers and auto market.